Are there any questions on 2019-07?
Council President, I have a question.
Councilwoman Davis?
Does the administration anticipate layoffs in the immediate future?
As we stated at the last meeting, as we're going through the budget, we are looking at every single division in the city to look for any way to improve effectiveness and look for economics.
Counselor?
Yes, President, if I may, I think for the benefit of both the council and the public, I'd like to speak on the rationale associated with this particular ordinance amendment. And specifically, the intent of this ordinance is to bring our code in compliance with our charter. That's at its essence what this code provisions, this amendment to our code intends to do. A few things we heard tonight. People talked about the form of government. Someone said, well, what about the Faulkner Act? Well, interestingly, the city of Plainfield doesn't operate under the Faulkner Act. We operate under a special charter, which in many ways does mirror the Faulkner Act. And in the Faulkner Act form of government, just as in our charter, there are very distinct separation of powers. Many folks spoke about that tonight, about the separations of powers, about the legislative and executive branch. Our charter speaks very plainly about the separation of powers. And what it says, and if you look at it, it says that the legislative function rests solely with this governing body. However, Section 3.5 of our charter specifically says that the appointment power, the removal power, the supervision of subordinate officers all falls under the authority of the mayor. So our charter is incredibly clear on those roles. However, we have a code provision which, in my opinion, strays from that clear mandate of our charter. And our code provision says that in a situation where you have a layoff, a removal, that somehow that should fall to the council. That doesn't gel with the bedrock of our form of government, which is our special charter. So what this ordinance intends to do is bring us back into compliance with our charter, which is very clear on the removal power. Interestingly though, someone mentions the Faulkner Act, in a mayor-council form of government, there is no other mayor-council form of government where the council would have such a layoff power. That power in any other Faulkner Act mayor-council form of government, that power rests solely with the administration. So that is at the essence of what we're intending to do. We're just trying to come back into compliance with our charter. Our code clearly has strayed from that with regard to this provision, and this essence is a cleanup of that to bring us back into compliance. And we're happy to answer any questions you have about this, questions about our code, questions about our charter, and the effect of this amendment. We're happy to take this.
To control a layoff action that's triggered by an outsourcing action. So if the administration proposes to outsource a group of jobs, does that action by itself, is that governed by the city council?
Yes, in a couple of ways.
Yeah.
First of all, in order to outsource, we would require a contract, and a contract with that outsourcing entity. That contract would have to come back to the city council. All contracts must be approved by the city council. All contracts will always be approved by the city council. So there's one instance with it. And if you were outsourcing a position which was in our code, all of our director positions, our division head positions, all of those positions which currently exist in our code, to remove any of those positions would still require council action, because we once again will be amending our code, and that can only be done by the council. Also, anyone who is subject to a layoff, I've heard people say we need an opportunity to be heard. Well, there is under civil service, which we are a civil service municipality, and will continue to be, as the law currently states. All those individuals who would be part of a layoff plan have appeal rights to the State Civil Service Commission. So they are not without an opportunity to be heard. What we're just saying is that they would not be heard by our council, who they would be heard by the state. Because our council does not have the appointment and removal functions that this ordinance seems to suggest that we've had on the books for some time.
So I want to go back to the
Sure.
the contract for outsourcing. So that would be a second step after the administration determined to make layoffs?
Certainly, obviously, if it was a essential function, or any function that was to be provided by the city, and the intention was to outsource, you would have to have a contract. So that contract would have to come back to council. I think, does that answer your question? I'm sorry.
Yeah, so really what I'm getting to is like, my question is about the sequence of these two steps. So if the administration takes action for layoffs, and then goes to the council to have a contract approved for new positions that are outsourced, what if the council doesn't approve those positions and yet we've taken a layoff action? Where does that leave us?
Well, obviously, I think there's a notice provision, obviously. In any layoff under civil service, there's a 45-day window where you have to notify any affected employee before we take effect. My expectation would be in that circumstance, that 45-day window, likely that there'd be a council meeting, the administration would come forward with a contract for review. If that was unacceptable to the governing body, I think then the administration would have to obviously reevaluate. It wouldn't stop the layoff plan, but obviously it would cause an operational problem that would have to be addressed.
It wouldn't stop the layoff plan?
So let me add to the information that Mr. Mancello is sharing. Now clearly, and let me preface my remarks by saying there is no layoff plan on the discussion this evening. We're discussing an ordinance. So if there were to be a layoff plan submitted by the administration to civil service, and mind you, I have read and seen some comments about, not going to civil service. The administration could not put a layoff plan together without submitting it to the Civil Service Commission for approval, either up or down. So it would have to be submitted. So let's assume there were to be a layoff plan in any department. The administration would submit that plan to the Civil Service Commission. Let's assume that it involved one employee, and that was to be outsourced. As Mr. Mancello said, outsourcing would require a contract. And so we would have to come to you. Let's assume we came to you, and you said no. The function still has to be done. So the fact that there was an approved layoff plan by the Civil Service Commission does not mean that you have to carry through with the plan. It is not binding upon the city. It is not binding upon the administration. And so if that function needed to be performed and the contract talks fell through as a result of the failure of the governing body to approve such a contract, then we will continue to make sure that that function is performed.
So in a sense, the layoff plan, under those circumstances, would be canceled, and the employees theoretically keep their jobs.
The safety, health, and well-being of the city is always primary, and we will never take any steps to endanger the public or to endanger employees.
Thank you. I appreciate the explanation.